when you're out and about, riding around Westwood One, Sirius XM, radio stations throughout America, giving you all the games. Doug Gottlieb is part of that in the studio. You also see him on Fox Sports. Follow him on Twitter at Gottlieb Show. He is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What's up, Doug? How are you today?
Great. Outside my bracket, I'm good.
Oh, well, I mean, look, everybody sucks. You cannot trust the Big Ten. That's what I've learned. I will never trust them again, Doug. Never again will I trust the Big Ten in this tournament.
Wait, so what do I do with my Kentucky for the national championship pick? Do I blame the Big Ten? Do I blame the Big Ten for that one, too?
No, you blame the SEC just momentarily.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, what did you think about the final possession in regulation, Doug? I didn't have a problem with it because I figured, you know what, you take that final shot.
You're talking Kentucky now,
yeah, I'm
right?
talking Kentucky. You go to overtime, and you've got the athletes. You've got 5 more minutes. I really thought Kentucky would still win the game by double digits going to overtime.
I did not think they'd win by double digits. I do think, generally the philosophy when you have the better team, the better players, more basketball is a good thing, right? Extend the game, shorten the game if you have the inferior team, extend the game if you have the superior team. I thought it was a great game plan from Shaheen. And, offensively, St. Peter's was just trying to get Oscar in bad switches, and they accomplished their goal oftentimes. And then defensively, they were obviously just trying to pressure up on Kellen, and then, Oscar got loose. I didn't love it, but this is a team where he's I actually think he did a really good job with this team. Like, part of it is I saw them at their best against Kansas, and I was like, man, I don't think anybody's beating them when they're right. They just couldn't get to that place ever again. And then you get to a team which is small and energized and making shots and got you kind of chasing them, and it becomes a hard game. So to answer your question, I didn't love it, but this is not a team that's won on their execution. They've won on transition basketball and Oscar getting them opportunity after opportunity. My thing is if you have him, you want to shoot a little bit earlier than you normally do just because he's such an incredible rebounder. You actually plan for that. So that was the part that I thought was missing.
Doug Gottlieb with us for a few moments on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. We saw the biggest blowout in 8-9 game history. How concerned should Baylor be with this North Carolina team who looked awful good?
I think they should be concerned on a couple levels. One, Carolina seems to figure it out. And two, Baylor doesn't have Jonathan Nchachua, who is their starting center, and they don't have L.J. Cryer, who's actually their leading scorer. So without those two, it's not just that you don't have those two players, but now all of a sudden your bench plays more, and their bench is not strong this year. Last year, they were 8 or 9 deep, and they were really good. So, I think that'll be a hold-your-breath game for Baylor. And the big thing is, that you got a freshman starting in the backcourt for Carolina, and he has 12 assists and doesn't hit a shot yesterday. I think that's a good thing. Like, Baycott's a beast inside. The wings are starting to play. Like, Carolina's become a bit of a problem. And of all the 1 seeds, Baylor was not only vulnerable before, but not having Cryer back for this weekend is going to make them super vulnerable.
Well, you look at the Zags, man, they struggled for the first 30 minutes. Then they flexed and didn't have a problem with Georgia State. But now you get Memphis. Memphis has got some size. They're playing really good basketball right now. How scary is that game for Gonzaga?
I think it's really scary. I think Memphis is pretty well coached. And then Jalen Duren's a big-time athlete. And, the question for Gonzaga is going to be, especially those 2 interior guys, how do they deal with athleticism? That was really what happened. And I don't think Memphis is necessarily the team. But, what happened to them last year is they go in there dusting everybody's ass off, and then they run into Baylor, and they can't hardly get the ball past midcourt, And all the stuff that works. And the WCC is a really good league. If you saw San Francisco didn't have their starting center, they have them. They probably win last night. Obviously, St. Mary's a really good team. I mean, they kicked the crap out of Indiana last night. But there's not the level of – you're not going to see dudes that like Memphis has in the WCC. Like, that just doesn't happen. So how do they play against that? Usually they're pretty good, but this, again, not a deep Gonzaga team. They're about 6 or 7 deep. And Chet is a freak. Right, but he was a freak last night against That's low major basketball. Now you're going against big-time dudes. How do you play? I think he'll be fine. I'm a little bit more concerned with the rest of their guys. But, yeah, they weren't sharp. They don't appear to be nearly what they were last year. I saw them against St. Mary's in the WCC championship game. I thought that was closer than the final score would lead you to believe. Like, I think Gonzaga's good. They're not what they were last year in terms of level of dominance.
We could spend the entire interview with Doug talking about last night, but all four of our state teams played today, so let's look ahead to that. Alabama catches Notre Dame in the 3:15 tip. This may not matter at all, but it feels like it should matter. Notre Dame played late into the night, double overtime, had to hop a flight. It doesn't seem like there's any way Mike Brey could have a fresh team against Alabama today.
Doesn't feel that way. We've seen teams kind of find a way to dial up that energy and be pretty special in this spot. And they don't play crazy fast, but, you know, if you just use Indiana as the guide, I talked to the St. Mary's coaches. They're like, those guys were done at the half. Like, just the look on their faces when they went in the half. They were down a little bit, and you reach for energy, and it's like a horse, you know. You go, how much can you go to the whip and really get out and get these guys? They just have nothing left. So I do think that's obviously a gigantic benefit for Alabama. Like, look, for Alabama, it's just how they play. You know, so oftentimes that team plays level of competition. And then, you know, what they do at the point and how they split the minutes there, I think, is important. But I think Alabama's in pretty good shape. It ends up being a good draw, not just because Notre Dame, you know, they have their best players are freshmen, but also because they're coming off the double overtime, get on a plane. Doesn't mean Notre Dame can't win, but Alabama wants to push the tempo. You can run a win out of them. But I don't think there's any question.
So Auburn gets off to a 22-1 start. They look like the best team in college basketball for a minute. 4-5 their last 9. How can they flip that switch and get back on?
Take better shots, get the ball to Jabari. I don't know, man. These things seem pretty simple to us. You know, I mean, this is like the talk of all of us, not just basketball guys, but guys that love Bruce. And I love Bruce. And Bruce is a far better basketball coach than anybody will ever give him credit. Like, he gets it. And he understands spacing and timing and how to use an old offense and jigger it so that it looks new. Like, he does a lot of – but, man, the shot selection of those guards is hard to watch. But I truly believe his philosophy. If you look at Kentucky last night, like, some of those guys are tight, man. And at Kentucky, every game you play matters to people way more than all these other games. It matters. It's the biggest game to your opponent, and it should raise up your level. They shouldn't have been tight last night, but they were. So now you go to Auburn, and the one thing Bruce's teams aren't is tight. They don't play tight. They do the opposite. And I think that's his philosophy. I think that's why he's had so much tournament success is like, hey, we're going to do what we do, and I believe in you guys, and let's go. And, yeah, they don't really dial back in nearly as much the shot selection stuff as I would if I was in that position, but I haven't been as successful as Bruce. I think they're really good. You know, Walker Kessler's the best rim protector there is in college basketball. Jabari's big time. And, you know, I think maybe their wings are the most underrated because we concern ourselves so much with Jabari. And then those guards can get after it. They can do a lot of good things. And I think their lack of fear is a good thing when it's dialed in the right way. So I'm interested to see their shot selection and the percentage of shots. And look, anybody who watches Auburn on tape is like, let's just not let Jabari catch the ball. Let's make him make everything tough. Let's make him make mid-range jump shots instead of catch and shoot threes or drive and dunks. So everybody's thinking the same thing. It's just going to be how they play it. That's the fascinating part.
All right, before you go, UAB. Jelly Walker is a guy that could take a game over, but this will be the best defense he's seen all year from Kelvin Sampson. How do you see this game playing out tonight?
Close, tight. You know, Houston's down 2 of their starting 5. I don't think they're great. I do think, you know, Kelvin was a rival when he was at Oklahoma, and I played at Oklahoma State. And there's, like, begrudging respect. He's a really good coach. But and AK lets his dudes play. He's got that Bruce philosophy, or he lets dudes play. I think it's going to be a great game. I mean, I think, because of the roster limitations of Houston, it becomes almost an even shot. I think Houston wins. I think it's a really good game. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty cheering for UAB. I think I have in my bracket. I think that one's they're going to need Jelly to bail them out late to win that game because Houston is so stingy defensively.
All right, here, Doug, all day on Westwood One, Sirius XM Radio. You can hear him on Fox Sports Radio as well. At Gottlieb Show is where you find him on Twitter, at Gottlieb Show. Thank you so much, Doug. Always great talking with you.
Man, the pleasure's mine.
All right, take care. Doug Gottlieb with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.